Hello, artist. I wanted to pop in today on Art Life Conversations and have a conversation with you about setting goals. Okay, this is something that I have been doing for, oh gosh, a really long time. I think before I even graduated art school in 2011, I knew that I was going to be out on my own, dun dun dun, as an artist. And I kind of intuitively, I hadn't taken any kind of, classes on this. There certainly wasn't any classes on this at the art school, but I kind of intuitively knew that I needed to set some goals for myself. And so that was the first time I set goals. Um, Over the years, later, I would, kind of fluctuate sometimes. I would say like the first 5 years of being a professional artist, maybe 3 to 5 years, somewhere in there, I would just try to like show up and paint every day, try to get my work seen, whether that was in shows or in galleries. And I didn't really set a lot of goals for myself back then. I just kind of took things as they came, right? And I had a really strong work ethic and I loved what I did, and so maybe I had goals like to get my work into specific shows, things like that. That might be about the only goals that I would set back then. As far as like making a living as an artist, making money as an artist, I kind of would just see what I could drum up. I could see like, can I get in? How many galleries can I get into? Maybe they can sell some paintings, which they ended up not being able to. So I ended up getting out of all of them years later. But just to give you an idea, it was kind of just like showing up every day and like working, painting, teaching, try to get classes going because that was one of the only ways I could get recurring income as an artist at the time, because I didn't know how to sell my paintings at the time myself. And the galleries weren't really selling enough at all for me. So it just kind of gives you an idea. This was probably 2013, 2014, somewhere around there. Um, and eventually I was like, you know what? Like, I want more than this. I want to be doing better than what I'm doing right now. I want to be selling more artwork. I want to be teaching more people. And so I started learning more and more about setting goals. So the first thing you want to get clear on is like, what do you want? That's the first thing. What do you want more of? Do you want to sell more paintings? Do you want to reach a certain level with the quality of your work so that your work can get into more prestigious shows or exhibitions or perhaps even galleries? What is it that you want? What is the vision that you have for yourself? So what I know to be true now is like you always have to have like a vision of what it is that you want to create for yourself in your life, much like what you create on a canvas, right? We go to a canvas, or to the sculpture stand or the potter's wheel or whatever the case may be, and we decide we want to create something. We get a picture in our head, right? We get a vague idea of what we want to do, or even just like a vague idea of maybe the colors we want to have in that painting, or the subject matter, or how we want the light to look in that painting. We get some kind of idea before we even start the painting, or set up the still life, for example. We have some idea of what it is that we want. And so that's the first thing you want to decide for yourself. What's in your heart? What is it that you would like to create in your life as an artist? And you just want to write that down. You want to write that thing down. Just journal on that question. Pause this video, journal on that question, see what comes up. and out from your heart onto the paper. Okay. The next thing I would say is once you decide what it is that you want, you have to kind of think about how far out you think that outcome is, right? Like how far away is that? And sometimes we do think some of us think it's much farther away than it actually is. Sometimes we think it's so far away that it's not even achievable. So that's not going to be a great place to start. Right? So if you're thinking that, you've got to kind of pull back and think, okay, what is it that I need to achieve? What could I achieve in this year, within a calendar year, that would support that long-term vision, right? That long-term goal that I think is like 5 years away, right? So one of my first goals was to get into galleries and get my work represented in 2011. That was the first thing I wrote down. And I thought it was so far away. I thought it was like 5 years away, right? But I started, little did I know that no, it wasn't 5 years away. It was going to be multiple galleries within a couple of years' time. So a lot of times we just don't know what we don't know, right? But the point is you have to set a goal. You're going to want to set a goal. If you feel like it's too far out, then you have to decide, like, what can I do? What do I need to do? What do I want to do this year in order for me to feel satisfied, to feel happy with my results, to feel like I have moved the needle forward towards that big, whatever that big, hairy, scary goal is that you have in mind. Some of us think that it's like super achievable really, really quickly, and maybe it's not on certain goals. And so anyway, so just keep that in mind as you're setting goals. When we set goals, we don't really know exactly what's going to happen. We don't have full control over getting the exact outcome of that goal at the exact time, but it is important to set them, and it is important to set a timeline, right? So I'm a firm believer in setting a timeline for your goals, for your projects. It just keeps you on track. So the first thing is to set that goal, and I'm sure you've heard of SMART goals, okay? You want it to be specific, right? You need to be very clear about what it is. So a goal is not something vague, like I want to get better at my painting. We all want to get better at our painting, right? You want to get really specific, like what does that look like for you? What does getting better at your painting actually mean? How are you going to judge that? How are you going to assess whether or not you got better at your painting or not? What is the benchmark for that? That is going to get you in a direction for a more specific goal, more specific artistic goal. So it should have a number attached to it. Usually it should have a date attached to it. Usually I want to, and we all know that which we need to learn to do, we learn by doing, as said, I think Aristotle, not sure, but we all know that. So for example, if I set a goal of getting better at my art, I would say that's more of a mission, right? That's kind of like a mission or your why, that your goals that you set will serve that mission and that why. Okay. So vague things, so-called vague things like that, can be more of like, here's the energy of what I'm after, right? And then you want to set up your goals to serve that mission or that why. So your goals then become very concrete, very, very specific. So it might look something like, well, I know if I want to get better at my art, then I need to be painting or creating my art consistently. I use painting, sorry, all the time because I'm a painter. But you can substitute whatever your genre is, right? So your goal might actually be, okay, how many paintings do I think I can complete within this quarter? Now, that's the other thing I do want to mention, is that I do quarterly goals. I do 90-day goals. Most people set goals only at the beginning of the year. Then they write them all out and write them all down. If they do that, even to begin with, and then they forget about them. I do this too, or I have done this too in the past. What I've done now and what I reiterate quarter after quarter, year after year is 90-day goals. Okay, so that is a long enough period of time for you to be able to make really significant progress. There's a great book called The 12-Week Year, I think it's called, by Brian Moran. It's enough time for you to see progress, but also hopefully not lose sight of your progress in tracking your results. Okay, so 90 days is what I do is I look out to that next year and then I break it down to 90 days this quarter. What can I accomplish this quarter? So you're going to set that goal. Let's say if it's to get better at your art. A goal might be to sign up for 2 painting workshops, for example, or sign up for a painting class. 1 painting class and attend all classes and do all the homework and do all the things, right? A goal might be to paint X number of paintings during that 90-day period. It might be 90 paintings in 90 days. That's the kind of stuff that always appealed to me because it was simple. I love simple. Simple just works better for me. But point being, you want to set that goal. Now, the next tip I want to share with you that I use that is super helpful, and I believe I got this from, was it Todd Herman, who also, he did a whole program for entrepreneurs based on the 12-year concept, the 90-day concept. Anyways, it's setting a good, better, best numeric goal. So instead of just saying like 90 paintings in 90 days, that is like the ultimate best case scenario, like most ideal. Like I would feel like a freaking rock star if I did a painting every day, or maybe sometimes did 3 little paintings that day. And then, so I'm just using that as a simple round example. 90 paintings in 90 days, that might be my best goal. And then maybe let's say 75 might be my better goal. And then let's say 65 might be my good goal, right? Because that would, give you more grace period. So I do this with everything. I do it with, setting revenue goals. I know if you're a high achiever like me, if you were like an A+ student, stuff like that, you're like, you don't even want to settle for the good. You are going to go for the gold. You are going to go for the best. And that's okay. You can still do that. You can still be very push forward by that best goal. But because a lot of times we don't have control, like especially with marketing goals or sales goals as artists, you're not going to have full control over that outcome actually happening. All you can control is like what you're doing, the shit that you're doing to try to accomplish that goal, right? That how you're showing up, how you're doing the work, that's the only thing that you can control, right? So that's my next tip, is that you give yourself a range. They should not be too far apart from each other. They should be kind of close together, right? But your best goal should feel like a stretch, and I would recommend, let me stop saying the word should in this video, but I would consider really feeling into it. Like, how would it feel for me to do that? Do I really feel, do I feel good about that? Or am I immediately feeling like there's no way I can do that? I've never done that before, so just check in to see how you're feeling whenever you set that best goal. Does it feel way too overwhelming or like way too much pressure? Do you feel like you are just trying to prove yourself to somebody? Do you feel like you're setting that goal out of a sense of like, finally, I'm going to do it. damn it, and like you're whipping yourself at the whipping post, that's probably not a great place to set a goal out of. So just check in and see how you're feeling whenever you write down your good, better, best number goal. It should feel very energizing to you. And it might also just feel kind of like, yeah, that would be awesome. Or, maybe you're not a super energetic, high energy person like me that's like, woo, rah, 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 so maybe you're like, okay, cool. I think I can do that, but you should feel, you want to feel good about it, but also not like a lot of, too much like overwhelming pressure or anxiety. If you're immediately going into anxiety about it, you're probably going to want to pull back and check in and see what that's all about. It's kind of, I'm sure people have experienced this, like with losing weight. If you're like, I'm going to do it, I'm going to totally change everything, and maybe for some people, they do kind of have that flip the switch moment, and they can do that. I think that that's actually, from what I've experienced with myself and with artists I've worked with, I think that's actually pretty rare whenever that happens. So I don't think that that's going to be the most common, and I don't even know that it's really that natural, normal, and healthy to approach it that way. Like, especially with people losing weight, as we know, that can really get very unstable and unhealthy if you're trying to lose too much weight too quickly. Anyways, this is not about weight. I'm just trying to find some kind of example to illustrate that we all might be familiar with. So that is the next thing that I do, is I break it down into good, better, best. And then here's the next key piece, right? It is implementing a plan. Like, what's your plan? Have you done this before? Or have you tried to do it before and it hasn't worked? Why is that? What do you need to start doing? What do you need to stop doing? Is there something that you need to continue doing or that you need to amplify? Like if you know that you paint more first thing in the morning or late into the evening, is there something about your schedule that needs to change? If you know that you will be more productive, more inclined to be more productive if you're painting around other people, okay, why would you expect yourself to go to the studio by yourself every single day and try to force yourself to paint when you're going to have a lot more grace, flow, and ease by signing up for artist groups? Or maybe it's, in that case, maybe it's like joining an artist co-op where you can go around other artists and you're all there to create that day, and that's going to support your goal and that's going to serve your goal. So make sure that you do take some reflection time, look at how you've tried to achieve this goal in the past, what kind of progress you've made towards it, what has worked, what hasn't worked. I would recommend that you don't try to fight against yourself, against what works well for you. Just look at, like, where have I had success in the past? How have I showed up in this way with ease? And try to basically keep that pattern going, right? Whatever's working, keep it working, baby. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? If it ain't broke, don't fix it, and maybe double down on it. Okay. So for me, for a long time, daily painting and painting immediately after I woke up and had some coffee worked best for me. And now the season of life that I'm in as an artist, that doesn't work best for me right now with what my current goals are and the things that I'm focusing on in my life, right? So find what's working best for you, and double down on that is what I would say. Okay. The next piece of this, once you get a plan, like, how am I actually, what's the shit I gotta do in order to do this thing, right? You might have one-time projects involved in that, like, okay, I'm not painting because I don't have a place to paint. okay, one of my projects right away is to get a private space set up to paint, whether that's in my home or outside of my home, whatever the case may be. Right. So just looking at that, are there any like projects that need to be done first that's going to support this goal, or that need to be done during the process? Right. So if you have a selling goal of selling your artwork, maybe one of your projects is to set up an Etsy shop, for example. So that's the next thing you want to look at is like your projects, right? And then just asking how am I going to accomplish this? So you want to look for, is there any obstacles in the way that I can perceive as being in the way? And trust me, you will find out what those obstacles are as you start on the journey to achieving your goal. They will reveal themselves real freaking quickly. Okay, so if you can't anticipate what the obstacles are now, they will reveal themselves to you. But try right now as you're journaling, ask the question like, are there any obstacles I can anticipate right now? Any obstacles that have been a problem for me in the past that I know of? This is like full time to be honest and objective without, criticism, without judgment. But just journal all of that out so that you are aware of like, here's the resistance that I'm up against. Here's the obstacles and challenges I know that I will face in this situation, because you will always face like more obstacles too. So don't worry about that. Okay. What are the opportunities that you can take advantage of? That's the next journal question. What are the opportunities in front of me right now? Low-hanging fruit, things that I can take advantage of right now that will like immediately, not something I have to do before I can take advantage of that opportunity. Something right now that I can do immediately that will support my goal. So obstacles, opportunities, projects, okay, and any projects, I already mentioned that. Okay, anything that you need to stop doing, that's probably going to go underneath obstacles as well. If you have any negative, habits or habits that are going to self-sabotage this goal, right? Okay, so those will go underneath obstacles. And this is what I do every 90 days. Now, every 90 days, a lot of times it's like on rinse and repeat, right? But the 90-day framework is so helpful because you can look back over your calendar and your journal the last 90 days and keep track of what happened, right? So it becomes easier and easier to assess those opportunities and obstacles and those saboteurs, those self-sabotaging habits that we all have. Every single one of us have some. We all get a couple gems you have to work with. But doing this every 90 days is really key. So the last point here is, last 2 points in order to implement this successfully. These are the 2 keys to implementing this process successfully. Number 1 is tracking. So tracking your results. If you set a number goal for painting sales or for completing a certain number of paintings, how are you going to keep track of your progress? You track it, right? Okay, this week I did 3 paintings. Maybe you write it down in your planner or on your Google Calendar or on your physical calendar every week. And I used to do that. I used to do that whenever I was tracking number of paintings completed. Jerry Seinfeld just does, he does the daily thing. That works for him, right? Like write a joke a day. Not Steven Spielberg, sorry. Anyways, the author, Stephen King, he does the daily thing. So some people are going to operate better with daily, right? Like they have a set time and they do it daily. So routines are going to work better. Very set, scheduled, structured routines are going to work better for some people than for other people, right? But you do have to track. If you don't track, you don't know how much progress you've made, period. Okay. Um, the second tip for implementation is staying focused. And tracking helps you to stay focused, as well as I would recommend, keeping your goals somewhere very visible for yourself. Like I have a little whiteboard that has my goals on it. As I achieve those goals towards the end of the 90 days, I move it up with a check mark. This is done. I completed this project. I did this. I did this. And that way I need to see it visually. Sometimes for me, it doesn't really work to have it like in a journal. If I do write out my goals separately, I keep that piece of paper separate and I keep it in a place where I always know it is, so I can pull that back out and review those goals. So staying focused on your goals. Tracking helps with that. Weekly tracking helps with that, is what I would recommend. Okay. And you might be thinking, oh, this is a lot. Yeah, it is a lot. It does not feel like a lot, but climbing an elevation, climbing the mountain, it takes a lot more focus and energy than falling down the mountain, just letting gravity do its work, right? So it is going to take intentionality and focus for you to stay on track with your goals and keep yourself accountable, right? Accountable along the journey. And you're not going to do it perfectly either. I still don't do it perfectly. And I've been doing this process since like 2018, this 90-day process. So it's been, I don't know, 5-6 years now that I've been doing this. And there are still things that hang me up occasionally. But one of them I would say is make sure that your goals are always visible for you, that you don't forget what they are and that you track. Those are the two top things that I've seen with myself. And I do have a routine for that. Every Monday morning, I check in, I create my plan. Where am I at in my goals? What have I accomplished? What haven't I accomplished? And then I brain dump, like, here are things in my life this week that need to be done, just general life shit, and like pay the bills or the groceries, all the things, send mom a birthday card, all the things. And then like, oh, here's my goals, here's my projects, here's like the big things I want to focus on this week, the most important things I want to focus on this week. And so when am I going to do those things? Those things have to get prioritized. I don't know if you remember the Stephen Covey demonstration, author of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. But when he did the demonstration with like the big rocks in the jar, he'd say, put the big rocks in first, and then the little rocks fill in the gaps. So it really is amazing. You're going to feel so much better if you can focus on the big rocks first, the big thing first. And that doesn't mean necessarily that you do them first thing in the week. It might mean that, but it doesn't have to mean that. It just means like, know when you're going to do those things. Those are the weeks that I struggle the most, is whenever I haven't decided on this day, I'm going to film my podcast, right? Like if I don't decide that ahead of time and know when I'm going to do it, then what can happen is I can just procrastinate it. Oh, shoot, I ran out of time this week. I didn't get to that. We didn't run out of time. We just didn't plan our time effectively, right? In order to accomplish those goals and stay on track towards our targets, right? So I hope this has been helpful to all of you. It's something that has really helped me in my art and in my art business. I use this all the time in my life, so I hope that it's supportive to you. And I also want to say, like, I think it's a misconception that artists aren't good at this stuff. I think that that's just a cop out. It's just a cop out, and it's a misconception. You actually get to, and actually setting goals is a very creative process as well. You actually can be highly, highly creative and highly disciplined at the same time. And if you don't like the word discipline, change it to devoted. Okay. Whatever works for you. You get to use whatever language works for you. But actually, we get to be this and that. it's the two do not, negate the other. Okay. So I'm going to throw that out there because I know that is a limiting belief that a lot of artists have. Well, if I'm so structured and disciplined, I won't be creative. And I'm not, I know I sound like I am making fun of it, but I'm kind of making fun of myself because I used to think that too. And what I've found now, years later, is like, oh, this actually makes me so much more creative because I'm creating so much more. I'm producing so much more, and I'm coming up with new ideas all the time, and I'm challenging myself more. That makes me more creative. I'm positioning myself to really do challenging goals, which is going to put obstacles in my path, and I have to grow in order to overcome those obstacles and overcome that resistance. And it's actually going to make me so much more a capable and creative artist and human being. All right, I hope this has been beneficial and helpful to all of you. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if you have any questions or confusion or any topics that you want covered on this podcast, simply email into info@artlifewithkelly with an I, not a Y.com. Okay, bye for now.